When I bought my house, one of the things that sold me was the backyard. Towering trees shaded the entire space, and in the spring, their blossoms filled the air with color. I knew they were old, maybe even older than the neighborhood itself. They stood like natural guardians, and I made it a point to care for them properly. But then came Karen. Every neighborhood has one, and ours was no exception. She was the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA rules, even though she didn't actually hold any official position. Her house sat across the street from mine, and the moment I moved in, she started watching me like a hawk. It began with small comments. "Your trash cans are too close to the curb," or "That lawn ornament isn't HOA compliant." I brushed it off, not wanting to create tension. But one morning, she decided my trees were her next crusade. I was sipping coffee on my porch when she marched over, clipboard in hand. "Those trees," she said, pointing with exaggerated disgust, "are overgrown and dangerous. They need to be cut down immediately." I looked at the trees, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. "They're healthy," I replied calmly. "I've already had them inspected when I moved in." Karen's lips pursed. "The HOA won't allow it. You can't just let them take over the neighborhood. It lowers property values." I raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure shade and clean air don't lower values. But Karen was relentless. That same week, I got an official-looking letter in my mailbox. It wasn't from the HOA board. It was clearly written by her, but it threatened fines if I didn't cut the trees back. I decided to play it smart. Instead of arguing with her directly, I contacted the HOA and asked for clarification. Surprisingly, the board members seemed unsure. They admitted Karen had been the loudest voice about it. But they didn't want to get involved without proof the trees were hazardous. So I scheduled a professional arborist to come inspect the trees. I figured if I had a certified expert's opinion, that would end the argument once and for all. When the arborist arrived, Karen made sure to be outside, arms crossed, glaring at him like a guard dog. "You'll see," she muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "They're a danger. Just wait." But the arborist only smiled politely and began his work. He walked around the yard, taking notes, tapping the trunks, and observing the canopy. The whole time, Karen hovered like she was waiting for him to condemn my beloved trees. What he said next, however, would flip the entire situation upside down. The arborist, a tall man in his 50s with years of experience etched into his calm demeanor, finished circling the trees and set his clipboard down. Karen leaned forward eagerly, expecting him to confirm her complaints. "Well?" she pressed, arms folded so tightly it looked painful. "You see how unsafe they are, right? Those branches could fall at any moment." The arborist straightened his glasses and gave her a puzzled look. "Actually, no. Quite the opposite." Karen blinked, stunned. "What do you mean, opposite?" "These trees," the arborist explained, gently patting the largest trunk, "are perfectly healthy. Strong roots, no signs of disease, and their growth pattern is remarkably stable for their age. In fact," he flipped a few pages of his notes, "these are heritage species. They're officially classified as protected trees under the county ordinance. Cutting them down without special approval would be illegal." The silence that followed was delicious. I couldn't help but smirk as Karen's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, searching for something, anything, to counter his words. Finally, she stammered, "Protected? That can't be right. They're ugly. They're messy. They drop leaves everywhere." The arborist chuckled softly. "That's what trees do, ma'am, but they also provide oxygen, shade, and habitat for local wildlife. These are exceptional specimens. Honestly, most homeowners would be proud to have them." Karen's face turned the shade of a ripe tomato. She stormed back toward her house, muttering something about unbelievable incompetence. The arborist shook his head. "Some people just don't appreciate nature." I thanked him profusely for his time, but he wasn't done. He handed me an official inspection report, stamped and signed. "Keep this on file. If anyone gives you trouble, this document confirms the tree's protected status. The HOA has no grounds to demand their removal." Relief washed over me. Finally, I had proof. Not only could I keep the trees, but Karen had essentially shot herself in the foot by forcing the inspection. Later that evening, I received a knock on my door. It was Karen, still fuming. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "The HOA will hear about this. I'll make sure they reconsider." But this time, I wasn't intimidated. I held up the arborist's stamped report like a shield. "Good luck with that. Unless you want to break the law, these trees are staying." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. Instead, she spun on her heel and stomped away. I knew Karen well enough by now to realize she wasn't done stirring the pot. What I didn't expect was just how far she'd go next. I thought the arborist's official report would be the end of it. After all, it wasn't just an opinion, it was legally binding. But if I had learned anything about Karen, it was that she never accepted defeat gracefully. A few days later, I noticed her pacing around my property line with her phone out, snapping pictures of my trees from every angle. She even crouched low to the ground, as if she was gathering evidence of some hidden crime. I tried to ignore her antics until I got another letter in the mail. Unlike the first one, this one carried the HOA's official letterhead. It demanded that I attend a mandatory board meeting to discuss the ongoing issue of overgrown trees, endangering the community. Karen's fingerprints were all over it. The night of the meeting, I walked into the HOA clubhouse prepared for a fight. Karen was already there, seated at the front with her arms crossed triumphantly, like she had already won. Several neighbors filled the seats, whispering among themselves. The board president, Mr. Thompson, cleared his throat. "We've received multiple complaints regarding the trees on your property. Tonight, we'd like to address the matter fairly." Karen immediately jumped in, waving a stack of printed photos. "These trees are monstrous. They block sunlight, litter the sidewalks, and are an obvious safety hazard. If we allow this kind of neglect, the whole neighborhood will go downhill." I let her rant until she was out of breath, then calmly set the arborist's report on the table. "Here's the certified inspection from a licensed arborist. Not only are the trees healthy, they're protected by law. Removing them would expose the HOA to serious legal consequences." A hush fell over the room. Mr. Thompson picked up the report, scanned the stamp and signature, then passed it around the table. Board members nodded, impressed by the authority of the document. Karen's eyes darted nervously. You can't trust that. Maybe he's biased." "Paid off," the treasurer chuckled. "Karen, this is a state-certified arborist. His word carries more weight than your photos." Several neighbors chimed in. One older man said, "Those trees are beautiful. They've been here longer than most of us. Why tear them down?" Another neighbor added, "Honestly, Karen, it feels like you just have a personal problem." Karen's face hardened, but her confidence faltered. For once, the board wasn't backing her up. Still, she wasn't ready to give up. As I left the meeting, Karen whispered venomously under her breath, "This isn't over. I'll find another way." And sure enough, she did. Her next move went beyond HOA politics and straight into personal territory. After the HOA meeting, I hoped Karen would finally back off. But within days, she escalated her tactics. This time, it wasn't letters or board complaints. It was a visit from the city code enforcement officer. I came home from work to see a white truck parked outside and a man in uniform, standing with Karen, who was waving her arms dramatically toward my backyard. She noticed me pulling into the driveway and smirked, as if victory was finally hers. "Good afternoon," the officer said politely. "We received a complaint about hazardous trees on your property." I sighed. "Let me guess, filed by her?" I nodded at Karen. Karen puffed out her chest. "I'm only trying to keep the neighborhood safe. These trees are a menace." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we'll let the evidence speak." He turned to me. "Do you have any documentation regarding their condition?" I was ready. Without hesitation, I pulled the arborist's stamped report from my file drawer and handed it over. The officer reviewed it carefully, nodding as he read. "This is valid," he said firmly. "These trees are protected under state law. In fact, you could be fined heavily for cutting them without a permit. There's no violation here." Karen's smug expression melted instantly. "What? That can't be right. He's lying! These trees are a danger." The officer gave her a look I'll never forget. Half amusement, half annoyance. "Ma'am, wasting city resources with repeated false complaints can result in penalties. Consider this your warning." Her face went pale. For once, Karen was speechless. As the officer left, I turned to her. "Karen, you've harassed me, lied to the HOA, and now wasted city time. This has to stop." But instead of apologizing, she hissed, "You'll regret this," before storming back to her house. Funny thing, though, after that day, she went quiet. No more letters, no more meetings, no more fake complaints. Apparently, the threat of real consequences was the only language she understood. Over the following weeks, several neighbors approached me privately. "Good for you," one said. "She's been a nightmare for years." About time someone stood up to her. Another added, "We love your trees. They're part of what makes this neighborhood beautiful." It felt good to know the community was on my side. Better yet, I could finally enjoy my backyard again without constant surveillance from across the street. And those trees? They kept thriving, offering shade in the summer, turning brilliant colors in the fall, and standing tall as a reminder that sometimes nature itself is the best defense against people like Karen. In the end, the trees didn't just survive, they outlasted Karen's nonsense. And to me, that was the sweetest victory of all. Enjoying this wild HOA showdown? Hit that subscribe button for more unbelievable neighborhood stories. If you loved seeing Karen get shut down by the arborist, give this a like. Here's an sedentranen senenpanavtiern. And drop a comment below. Have you ever dealt with a neighbor who thought they ran the whole block?